Greetings, Internet and fellow Whovians who are clicking through on this. I appreciate it. Hopefully, you stick around more than 3 seconds. Anyway, let's talk about Season 1, Episode 5 Dot and Bubble, written by Russell T. Davis. Yeah, I have a sparse set of notes here. I do full spoiler reviews, as clearly marked in the title and the thumbnail, so I'm assuming you've seen the episode. So, I don't really go through what happened beat by beat, because we all know. So, I just watched it. Anyway, yeah, the line came really early in the episode, but I kind of knew that I didn't know it would come back later. I just liked it enough at the time. Like, oh, that's going to be the description, because it's funny. The bubble down, dot off, that works real well. Overall, I'd say I like this episode, generally. Not generally, just overall, I did like it. Kind of got the vibe for what it was going to be just from last week's, like, next time on preview of, like, Oliver commentary and social media, and feels sort of, I would say, classical sci-fi, but I guess it's more, well, it's sort of always been a trope of science fiction to kind of point out the ridiculousness sometimes of our own society and directions we were going in. Sometimes there's some people in some ways, and that's episode has a lot of this one. The best quote about that in this episode, the best example of that in this episode is Lindy's line after she turns the bubble off and is just trying to walk out of the office is the don't know how to walk without the arrows, which I thought was pretty great and does remind me not even of the younger than me generation, but even the older than me generation. I know, especially around Detroit, or even just in general, sometimes it seems like my mom cannot navigate without GPS, and I'm like, you did this for a long time with just maps and whatnot and memorization. But yeah, and it happens with everyone, and this happens regardless of age. Because there was a time, I'm old enough to remember, you used to have to either memorize or write down phone numbers. We don't have that anymore now. Like, I know 2 of them, maybe 3 that I have important, but yeah, that's no longer a thing. Like, the skill sets that just get lost when you don't use them, even within a generation. Like I said, within my own lifetime, that happened. So, but that's neither here nor there. But again, it's the episode. There's strong tones of that, so it feels appropriate to discuss it with this stuff. So, and interestingly enough, the only real like connective tissue this episode had to the rest of the season, possibly the what's going to be a multi-season arc, we don't know yet for sure, is the Doctor and Ruby basically point out directly to the audience, like they notice it for the first time. You have this same woman, this same actor, who keeps popping up in every episode. Like, she was the face of the Villain Guard ambulance system and Ruby's neighbor. Like, they start like, it finally clicks for them. Like, there's something to this. They don't go any further than that, other than just basically point it out to the audience. In case you haven't noticed this yet, which yes, plenty of us have. Real early on, we started noticing that. We know there's something to it, we just don't know what yet. And it does tie into this episode too, with Lindy, supposedly that's her mother, although the way the characters near the end talk, they almost just describe her as mother in general, like very much alien. I got Weyland-Yutani vibes from this episode, plenty, in terms of corporate sci-fi stuff. And they never named the monsters in the episode, like the race of them or anything like that, because as we find out, one of the things I thought was a really cool idea, because I hadn't seen it done before, was that yeah, these things are killing people in alphabetical order based on their surname. And as the Doctor says, like that, there's no like in the this isn't what he says. I'm paraphrasing. Like, yeah, in like the biological world, in biological sense, that makes absolutely no sense. These things had to have been designed to do this. And yeah, the only thing I could think that would even come up with or imagine the idea of if you're cleansing the population of a planet, doing it in alphabetical order, only a machine, only a program, an algorithm, a computer program, like artificial intelligence. Oh, dumb artificial intelligence, because smart AI can mimic human behavior and wouldn't do it like that. So rudimentary, or someone playing their hand. Who knows? Like this episode will probably make more sense, and there'll be other little things that will tie into the bigger story once we find out what that is, what's going on with it. But definitely some weird hints dropped. And again, the thing I brought up and haven't bring it up in most episodes, what thematically is tying all these things together is still a sense and theme of family and things like that. Because it happens with Lindy a lot, and her mother and her mom, and well, her mother and mom person. That one's still confusing too. But at the end, when she's talking to the other character, still is referring to her as mom, not even her mom. It's interesting. And we do get that one shot too with Ricky September looking at that live feed of the homeworld, interestingly enough. Why it's called that and there's not a planet designation name is interesting too. And he sees, population 0, and you see one of the monsters in front. Oh yeah, they got off topic because they never named him. I very quickly, within 10 minutes into the episode, was like looking what the realized we're gonna get a clear shot of them. Wasn't sure how obscured they were gonna keep them. But yeah, they're like a cross between a Venus flytrap and a slug. So if those two things were to combine, this is what you'd get. The Venus flytrap slug. So there you go. In this case, it's a human trap, and yeah, it again designed alphabetical order thing. Again, my whole before I get to the darker moment that happened with Lindy near the ending, which I do want to talk about, my whole hypothesis for the sort of not backstory, but like the background information that we're not fully given in the episode, but there's implications of it. It seems to imply that even the people that were on this planet were somewhat artificially created by this mother on the homeworld to do data processing is what they say they do. They don't really see exactly what their job is that they have for 2 hours a day because they're the rich kids. There's a little jab at that kind of thing. But it's interesting. It does seem like the kind of efficiency, cold, calculated efficiency you'd get from a machine of like creating people to do data processing, data entry processing, whatever. Some kind of processing that requires human touch. They're needed for some reason. They need people for something that's going on in this episode. I'm sure we'll get more clarity on later. But yeah, once their usefulness, productivity perhaps at a certain age, it's like Logan's Run. Like once you're at a certain age, you're no longer useful to the society, and all the things happen. There's a really old reference for you sci-fi fans. Anyway, maybe that's what's going on here. Because again, if the homeworld population was 0, and you also see one of the Venus flytrap slug things in the foreground when Ricky September's looking at that feed, makes me think that there's something more to that. Because it looked like kind of industrial area they're looking at. And obviously they mentioned like old history of that planet, how before it was like, as they said, they go down the tunnels. Lindy says so manual, which I think is a really funny line, considering the technology she's dependent on and used to. It's a good joke, but so there's a lot of good fun stuff. And props to the actor, whoever it is who played Ricky September. He was fantastic in this episode, which is, well, I'll move on to what I feel is, I think people have made comments on multiple different episodes this whole season of like, oh, this is really dark, or this is dark, or for Doctor Who, there's the levels. Honestly, I thought that moment when he's getting the final numbers in, the passcode to get the door opened, that moment where she sells him out, like his real last name isn't September, it's Combs, starts with a C, which comes before like, wow, that's cold. And I mean, the way they shot it, like it's, you don't see it obviously any of the gore, but man, when you know what happened because the way they shot it without showing it, you still know exactly what happened. Oh, that was brutal, and a pretty gnarly kill for Doctor Who of all shows. So hey, props to them for that, though. For kind of writing that fine line of doing a pretty gnarly, like, killing off of a side character, and just in a way where it's not quite seen, but we all know exactly what happened. Anyway, I thought that moment with Lindy was particularly dark, and it's funny the way that the character, your view as like, to me as an audience member, I think it's intentional. Good writing, good direction. Your view of that character changes in that moment. She suddenly has this look of kind of like darkness to her, which you never got. She's the opposite of that. She's kind of more innocent and young, and but you see this dark side come out in that life or death moment. I mean, it's a choice that I think most people would make. Otherwise, you'd be sacrificing yourself for something. It's self-preservation choice kind of thing. But man, yeah, it's you see it in her face and a lot of the shots and the rest of the episode after that. Yeah, they did a really good job. Both the actor playing that character and the director of the episode did an excellent job. And the editing too, because editing is really important. Unless you're one of my videos, and not really. But yeah, it's really well done. Really good quality stuff there. And on my final note here is, this is the first time, so far at least, to my knowledge, that I can really remember. Now, I need to go back and rewatch this block of episodes with 15 that we've had so far, but to me, the end of this episode was the first time I can remember we've seen the 15th Doctor get properly angry and mad, which we haven't seen that side of him yet. I knew it would come out eventually. All the Doctors have that side to them. We just haven't seen his yet. We got a little glimpse of it. I'm sure we'll see more of it later. I can't wait, because Ncuti Gatwa was just knocking it out of the park, trying to put it on an acting clinic. Most actors do in the role of the Doctor. It's a highly sought after role because the prestige of it, but also the range of what you get to do as an actor is, a real treat. So, yep, I enjoyed that, as brief as it was, and it's, him getting angry and mad that these people won't let him save them. It's just, it's a really interesting dynamic there, and there's some, I think, interesting social commentary, not even directed at Gen Z, but possibly even the generation younger than them that we don't have a name for yet, because they're still pretty young, but whatever. Anyway, before we get all existential about that stuff, next week, the preview, and again, I don't ever look up the titles or writers, but so far Davis has written everything other than the previous episode, or not but Boom. Yeah, that was previous, I guess. No, sorry, no, it was not previous. We had 47 Yards. Also written by Davies. So yeah, so far everything has been written by Davies except for Boom, which Moffat did. I would not be surprised, again, they released the list of writers and stuff. I just don't look at it. I like being surprised in the moment, usually. On the Moffat one I heard about in advance, but I would like to see Mark Gatiss come back. Again, like in terms of the original, like what we call the RTD1 era, this is RTD2, some of the terms I've heard. It's funny. But in the RTD1 era, yeah, some of the better episodes, not that Davies wasn't writing quality stuff, because he was, but Moffat and Gatiss would come in and just drop just one-off bombs, like, oh, here you, and those are like a lot of all-time classics. Both those guys had a hand in. More so Moffat than Gatiss, but they've both been good with that. If you've never seen, for the 50th anniversary, besides the special Day of the Doctor, Mark Gatiss also wrote and directed, I think it's called An Adventure in Time and Space. You can find it out there. It's a dramatization about the origins of the show and the early 60s. It's amazing. So, highly recommend that. Yeah. So, anyway. Sorry, I'm getting off topic here. So, next week, I don't know the title, anything like that. I just know what I see in the little trailer we get. So, does look like this is the episode with Jonathan Groff, who we knew was coming in at some point this season. There's rumors that he may be a reoccurring character companion. Maybe, I mean, I could very much see him being either a literal direct version of Captain Jack that for some reason looks different, or a very similar character. Like, he's got that kind of vibe to me. He's an actor, so. But we'll see what they do with him and what the plan is there. This looks very much like it's. I remember we saw this in like the season trailer or little clips of each episode. This one was sort of, again, that looks. I know it's not all the French Revolutionary era, but it, because that was a short period compared to a longer. There's a proper term for it. I just don't remember it from history. I just refer to it as like the girl in the fireplace era because I'm a Doctor Who fan. So of course. Because, yeah, there was that. We saw the brief shot in the season trailer of like, oh, we're going back to that time period, that era of like, you know, sort of French Revolution sort of era of time. Or again, as I call it, the girl in the fireplace era. France. I'm assuming France. Who knows? There are also like animal people. It gets very Doctor Who-y in the trailer in terms of like it looks like a normal thing. And then we start seeing other various extraterrestrials, so to speak, show up. I mean, it may not even be on Earth. We don't know. It's Doctor Who. You never know what's going to happen. It could be on some planet where it's just they're in this time period. Things have always been like that. It's the height of their technology. Who knows? So we'll see what happens with any of that. But yep, that's it for now. I'll wrap this up and talk to you again next week. More Doctor Who. By the way, I should note, I learned this a couple weeks ago, but should inform everyone. If you don't know, we're only getting 8 episodes per season now. And season 2 is already done filming, so don't worry about any of that. There may be a small break between seasons like 2 and 3 or whatever they end up doing. But yeah, 8 episodes per season. So, because again, it's the way. This is Doctor Who in the streaming era where, yeah, we're getting a couple less episodes per season, but the budget and quality of those is all going to be better. So, I think it's good. Some people don't like it, but hey, you know, wouldn't be Doctor Who fans if we didn't have to have discussions and arguments about basically everything. So, you know, it is what it is. That's true of all science fiction fandom, but Doctor Who fans are especially bad. You know who you are. Because it's all of us, myself included. Anyway, I'll stop now. The longer I talk, the longer it takes to upload. And last time I had to do other things, like work. This is partially work. You know what I mean? Other work that's not this. I'm really still just going, aren't I? Okay. So we'll just drunk giraffe and quit.